Hello, so today we're going to go over some tools that are in the features tab. So basically after you make a sketch, the features tool will let you use the sketch to make various different things. So first thing we're going to go do is the extruded boss or base. So basically it's pretty self-explanatory. All you can do is you have to select your sketch and then click extrude or boss or base. So this basically extrudes your sketch that you made. So you can call this a profile, and a profile is basically a profile is just a sketch that is completely enclosed. So as you can tell from this image, I've decided to fully define it, and the entire loop is closed. So that way it has a closed boundary. So when you extrude it, if there was an opening, let's say, uh, it wouldn't know where to stop on that boundary. So it would be an undefined profile, so it can extrude. But anyways, so basically all you gotta do is click in here, and this kind of lets you extrude in kind of different. There's different ways of extruding. So a blind extrude just basically lets you extrude it in one direction at a certain length. So you can change this to like 100 millimeters or so on and so forth. A quick one is do that as well. And a nice way to kind of control how your image looks in SolidWorks is by using the control key and your mouse button key. So if you use the mouse, the scroll button, so this lets you zoom in and out. So basically, when you zoom in and out, it will always zoom in where your mouse is right at that moment. So as you can see, if I zoom in, it zooms in on this point. But if I move my mouse over here and I start zooming in, then it zooms in on where my mouse is hovering over. And the next one you can use is to pan in a like up or down is simply hold the control key and then hold the mouse button, and you're able to move your image like so. So it's kind of easier to pan left to right, up and down, and etc. And the final one is to rotate. So if you just hold the mouse button, not the mouse button, the scroll button, it will rotate the object. So the way that this works is that it rotates about the center of the object. So if you look at this point right here, this is the center. This is the center of the object. So if I rotate, as you can see, this point in the middle does not move at all, but the rest of it does. So it rotates about that point. And I think a quick one to go over is your control 1 to 9 lets you have different various in views. So this is control 2, control 1, control 3, control 4, etc., etc. Yeah. So those are just some tools that I use to have better views and angles of the thing that you make. Anyways, back to these directions. So there's blind, there's up to vertex. So this kind of, if you had another object extruded out here, this would basically let you go up to that object. Um, and then mid plane basically lets you go through the mid plane. Okay, so I'm gonna extrude it in the mid plane up to 50 millimeters. Oh, and now it makes this object. So another one that you could easily do is an extruded cut. So simply create a sketch on. So first you have to select the plane that you want to draw on. So right now I'm drawing on this surface right here because I selected the surface to draw on. And let's just extrude cut right here. So like it says, it kind of automatically detects the solid object that it has to go through, so it just automatically goes through. This is very similar to extruded boss base, except it's just in a cut. But there's some other ones that you might keep well of. Instead of using a blind tool to always match the cut, if you want to say like this hole to go straight through this, but you want it to have a more flexible design, making it equal to this would kind of be a pain because you'd have to adjust it every single time you want to adjust the thickness of this object, for example. So a nice one that usually I use all the way is just through all, and then it just automatically goes up to the surface, this whole surface. So let's say I want to change this extrusion. Let's say I want to make it 75 millimeters thick. Then the hole still goes through no matter what I do. So a very important feature that you will be probably using a lot if you're going to be making various objects and different references is called reference geometry, or more importantly, reference planes. So this basically lets you create planes besides the front, like the three main planes. So, for example, let's say you had this object, but you wanted to sketch something on like a 45-degree angle going this way. So one way of doing it was to make a plane that is 45 degrees on this side, and then start sketching on it. So the way you can do that is by simply adding in a new reference plane at a different angle. So you can always start from referencing your planes from either a plane itself or from like the surface of an object. So I'm just going to choose the surface of an object for now. But typically I prefer to reference from planes just in case you kind of mess something up with the part object. It's much easier to screw up a part object than planes. So yeah, you know what? Actually, I'm not going to reference this face because that goes against what I just said. I'll reference this. So as you can see, the default one is this one right here, which is simply a distance. So right now, if you can tell, it is it's like 10 millimeters off from here, but I want it at a 45-degree angle instead. So what you can do is simply click this one, which is at an angle. So as you can see, it is not really defined. This plane is over here for some reason. That's not what I want. So you might be thinking, why is that? Well, it's referencing the front plane, but it doesn't actually have an edge to sort of reference right now. So it doesn't know where to rotate about. Like a front plane has two axes, but to rotate something, you need one defined axis. So that's what your second reference is supposed to be, is a defined axis. So I'm gonna choose an edge right here. But you could choose any edge in here. Oops, I'm selecting the third reference. Yeah, so I can choose this edge. Oh, whoops. I'm just gonna choose it, whichever. Yeah. Yeah. So you can change the angle by using different numbers in here. So I'm gonna choose 45 degrees, like so. And there you go. Now I got plane one. Oh, and to rename things, sometimes after you start making a lot of these sketches and planes and whatnot, simply slowly double click the object like that, and then you can retype it. So first plane, and now you can see that it shows up on here. So now I can sketch on this plane. So I want to go normal 2. Now I can sketch on this plane. So another tool in SolidWorks you can use is called a revolved boss and base. So similarly to extruded, instead of kind of coming out in a straight line, it will come out in kind of like a, you guessed it, revolved circular motion instead. So the way this is done is a little bit different. So you need to basically not only define your profile, so like a fully enclosed sketch, but you also have to define the axis in which it rotates around. So let's say I would probably sketch something like this. So I would want to define, like, this is like my axis of rotation, and let's say I want to extrude like a simple circle like this. Then what you would do is you would click revolve boss or base, and this already detected this line right here, but if you want to choose a different line, let's say for example, for this line, it already detects it. But let's say for example you want to use a different line. Yeah. Revolve boss base. So now it doesn't know. So now you can click either one to do it, and then it will fully rotate around it no matter what you want to do. And now I created a halo thing above my weird box. The revolved tool is very good for creating complex profiles or shapes that are something like a chess piece, or a chess piece like a rook or whatever, because it kind of lets you sketch out like a cut profile, and then it fully extrudes it instead of having to kind of carve it out individually by hand. So what if you want to make a profile that doesn't have any hollowness like this circle? What if you want to make a solid object, like a rook, for example? Well, to do that instead, you would actually draw a center line, again, as your axis. And then you would draw your shape of whatever you want. So let's just draw the Bluetooth symbol, I guess. So as you notice, I actually didn't enclose this. And for some reason, when you try to enclose this and then do uh, a revolved boss or base, it won't recognize it. So as you can see, it worked for some reason. I think it's because the computer recognizes that the center point is like, it's not really like, if like these exact coordinates, there's already something there, or like you're revolving right on top of it, so it doesn't really define it. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, but I just know that you can't enclose this, so you must have an open border. But it must these points must actually meet this axis of revolution. You can also in here not fully enclose it. So as you can see, let's just do 180. So it only revolved it 180 degrees of the way. And of course, you can use one of these. And now you have this flat top. So this object here that I made uses the boss extrude and the cut extrude tool. But if you were to make a part that, like for example this part, and you always want a hole in it, a good general practice that you can use is to reduce the amount of features that you use over here, or the amount of sketches and so forth and so forth. So instead of using both a boss and cut, you can actually change this to one, because this hole here, you don't need to cut it out exactly. There's different ways of kind of putting this hole in there. So I deleted this and I edit sketch. I can simply add in the sketch myself right here. And then the hole is in here itself. But let's say I fully define the sketch. For example, like so. So this is fully defined. Okay, so the next feature that we're going to go over is the swept boss and base. So like the other objects that we extruded, it kind of extrudes only one direction and it follows a straight path. So it was 90 degrees, or it's perpendicular to the plane that we draw on, and then we just extrude on forever. But the swept boss and base kind of lets you decide the direction that it will go. So instead of just going straight, it can also kind of curve or go 90 degrees in a different area, or what have you. So there's two things that you'll need for the swept boss base. So first is the path that you want to kind of follow, and then the next thing is you need a profile that you want to follow, that the thing has to go on. The profile that it will follow on the line that you just drew. So for example, I'm gonna make a simple pathway. You can really make it whatever you want, but I'm just here for demonstration. It's good enough. Exit the sketch, and then you would have to create a reference plane that is perpendicular to this endpoint. And so like I made this plane perpendicular to it, and now I want it to be right at this spot. So it would be coincident, like so. And now I want to sketch on this plane. I'm just going to use a simple profile like so. And now, I can do the swept boss base. So this already selected my sketch 12, and then this will select, I'm going to select this right here. So now we have this curved shape. So this is very useful for building simple very simplified structures that are kind of like bent. Like this could be like a paper clip, like a cross section of a like paper clip, for example. So anything in like 2 dimensions that's on like one plane, and you want to make like kind of like a funky cross section quickly, this is a really useful tool for that. So another thing about the swept boss tool is that you can actually add a thin feature. So what this thin feature does is instead of having extruding a solid object that goes through all of this, you can have it hollowed out to a specified design based on your current sketch. So if I simply check all this again, this one direction simply means that it adds a 0.5 millimeter thickness to this whole entire perimeter right here. So so this inside is your initial sketch, and this is how thick the wall is. And the other options are as mid plane, so it extrudes 0.25 millimeters on both sides of this. And then 2 planes, 2 direction actually means that you extrude, so this would be your T1, so that means it extrudes 0.5 millimeters inwards and then 1 millimeter on the outside. So let's, and then this is what it will look like so. And then this goes throughout the entire thing. So there's many options that you can play around within the sweep tool. So for example, you can follow the path and you can kind of add different things. So like there's something called a specify twist value. So instead of following the profile like so, you can kind of twist it. So like right here, let's say I want to change it to 50 degrees. So as you can see, over the whole course of the length, instead of saying kind of parallel with this front plane, it twists like almost 50 degrees off plane eventually. Or you can change it to however you like. And then, or you can do something like this where you want to change it as many times as you want. So let's say you want the whole thing to twist like 90 times. Ooh. Okay, I may have crashed my computer. Alright, so you can do that, and as you can see, it kind of worked, but my computer hates me now. So there. Now looks like a really thick spring. Kind of looks like those springs that you use for old phones. But yeah, you can do really cool, weird things with this tool. So this week's assignment is to create 2 objects. One is a barbell and the other one's a paperclip. Here are the provided dimensions and drawings for it. So the goal of this assignment is to create both objects using only one sketch. Alright, good luck and thanks for watching.